On this Wednesday night, holiday travel chaos. The thousands already stranded. And the winter storm still looming. The millions under extreme weather alerts and how it could snarl your plans.
It's going to be a challenging next few days.
Ukraine's president goes to Washington.
What a great honor.
His gift, his message, and his plea on his first foreign visit since Russia invaded his country. Parting with plastic. Could giving up single-use plastics have unintended consequences? And the power of quiet philanthropy.
I am just incredibly filled with absolute joy and love over her gift.
The extraordinary bequest by a Winnipeg businesswoman that will last for generations.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. What a way to ring in the first official day of winter. Thousands of people who plan trips for the holidays have had them delayed, and anyone traveling in the days ahead is advised to pack extra patience. An Arctic airflow and heavy snowfall snarled flights at Vancouver's airport, causing a cascading effect. Hundreds of flights have been canceled or delayed. That's left people stuck on planes for hours or sleeping at the airport. And more weather systems are coming. Extreme cold weather alerts are now in place for Canada's north into BC, as well as on the prairies and parts of southern Ontario. Tracy Nagai has our top story on the cold, the snow, the cancellations, and how it could impact your travel.
Passengers pack the Vancouver International Airport desperate to get home. But for some, it could still be days.
They told me that I can only fly on the 25th of December.
And thousands of travelers worldwide have yet to start their trip, with YVR announcing it's limiting inbound international flights until Friday in order to deal with the backlog.
Unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I have to be frank with folks. It's going to be a challenging next few days, and there are going to be continued delays and cancellations.
WestJet has announced more than 550 flights have been canceled since Sunday. The airline telling people with confirmed travel between now and December 26th, they can proactively cancel their flight online for a full refund. The impact of the delays in Vancouver rippling out across the country, and Canada is not out of the woods yet, with the country bracing for another blast of cold weather.
This low-pressure area will deepen rapidly as it moves through the Great Lakes, bringing rain, a flash freeze, snow, gusty winds over 100 kilometers per hour, and blizzard conditions lasting into the weekend, eventually extending into Quebec, parts of the Maritimes as well. The cold air comes in behind the low.
The plunging temperatures only adding to passengers' frustrations, fueled by a lack of communication, long lines, and wait times.
Right now, we're just waiting in line, but we didn't hear anything from any of the staff.
The pilot told us that the waiting is half hour. Okay. The half hour goes to 2 hours. The 2 hours goes to 4, 6, 8, 9. 9 hours we're at the plane, sitting and waiting to open.
Passenger rights experts say while cancellations and delays may have been unavoidable at YVR due to the snowstorm, lengthy tarmac delays are unacceptable.
I would suggest that the passengers sue the airline for damages. Keeping them for that long on the aircraft, that was not excusable.
For many traveling on a hope and a prayer this week.
If I only have wings, I'm going to go and fly back home.
Perhaps some comfort found in wishful thinking. In Calgary, Tracy Nagai, Global News.
Global News has obtained more information about a national security document that detailed an extensive network backed by the Chinese government, which allegedly tried to interfere in the 2019 federal election. The story was first broken by Global News, and now our investigative team has reviewed an unredacted intelligence document from 2020 that explains how the network operated and allegedly sought to influence politicians and their staff. Mackenzie Gray from our Ottawa bureau has more details. Mackenzie.
Well, Donna, this is a rare inside look into what the government knew about alleged Chinese interference in the 2019 vote. An unredacted memo from the Privy Council office that was viewed by Global News outlines an extensive network of community groups being used by Beijing to conceal the flow of funds between Chinese officials and Canadian members of an election interference network. Now, the goal of that network was to influence government officials into taking specific stances on China's issues of interest, and the way the group hoped to execute that was by targeting and influencing at least 11 candidates in the Greater Toronto area running for both the Liberals and Conservatives, according to this briefing. Now, those targeted candidates had varying levels of knowledge of the sophisticated scheme. The document states some are likely unaware of these influencing efforts, while others are willingly cooperating. And one key thing here, Donna, the briefing doesn't say the names of those 11 candidates.
Mackenzie, do we know who was part of the network allegedly trying to influence the election?
The PCO document says individuals working for the Chinese consulate, local community leaders, Canadian politicians, and their staff were all involved with this network. And it was set up by an organization called the United Front Work Department, which is an arm of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, this department wasn't just offering financial help. The UFWD is also likely to offer candidates logistical support, favorable media coverage, and endorsements, according to the memo. Now, China denies it interferes in other nations, but Canadian intelligence officials dispute that. And at the end of this briefing, they gave an ominous warning, predicting foreign interference efforts are likely to be more persistent and pervasive in future elections. Donna?
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thanks. What led a group of 8 teenage girls to allegedly swarm and stab a man to death over the weekend? That is the troubling question at the heart of a Toronto police investigation. The suspects between the ages of 13 and 16 are charged with second-degree murder. Police say the 59-year-old man was killed in downtown Toronto on Sunday. Under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, the accused girls cannot be named. Toronto police say the suspects are not from one specific geographic location, and it's believed they met online. As for what led to the stabbing, a woman claiming to be the victim's friend tells Global News she saw what happened.
They tried to steal your alcohol?
They take it already, and he stopped them, and then they stopped them, leave her alone, and then they hit him. All bleeding, all bleeding.
We asked Toronto police whether an attempted theft took place during the encounter with the victim. They tell Global News a possible theft of alcohol was involved. The victim has not been identified by police, who are working to notify his family. It's believed the same group of suspects was involved in another altercation prior to this one. We're learning more about the 73-year-old gunman who took the lives of 5 people and injured one other at a condo building north of Toronto on Sunday. The estranged children of Francesco Villi say he was a controlling and abusive husband and father. In a statement shared by Ontario's police watchdog, the Special Investigations Unit, the 3 daughters expressed they are deeply heartbroken for the victims' families. To honor the lives of those killed, a candlelight vigil is being planned for tonight in Vaughan, where Villi went on the shooting rampage before he was shot by the police. Ukraine's president is in Washington, his first trip outside the country since Russia invaded. And Volodymyr Zelenskyy told President Biden a just peace with Russia means no compromises. He's in Washington to make the case for continued support for the defense of Ukraine. Tonight, he got a long standing ovation before his speech in English to the U.S. Congress.
Against all odds and doom and gloom scenarios, Ukraine didn't fall. Ukraine is alive and kicking. Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security and democracy that we handle in the most responsible way.
As Russia's war in Ukraine drags into a second year, there is a push, especially among some Republicans, to cut back on American aid and weapons to Ukraine. Jackson Proskow reports on this high-stakes visit to the American capital.
This is a mission to thank the American people for their support. For President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, it's also about survival. A chance to stress the importance of American money and weapons in the nearly year-long fight against Russia. He presented President Joe Biden with a Ukrainian military cross, a gift from troops on the front line.
All the appreciation to you, first of all, Mr. President, for your big support and leadership.
You know, it's an honor to be by your side in the united defense against what is a brutal, brutal war being waged by Putin.
Less than 24 hours earlier, Zelenskyy was on the front lines himself, traveling under cover of darkness, first to Poland, then to a U.S. military flight to Washington, arriving just as the Biden administration announced the delivery of more aid, including the highly advanced Patriot missile defense system.
I think that this support for Ukraine is based in our values It's based in our strategic interests. We know that Ukraine has to win this war against the Russians.
Increasingly, there are skeptics in the U.S., Republicans who want to turn off the taps and force Ukraine to go it alone or negotiate with its invader.
The days of endless cash and military materiel to Ukraine are numbered.
Zelenskyy seems confident American support will endure, arguing Ukraine's battle is the world's fight.
Because we really fight for our common victory against this tyranny. That is real life. And we will win. And I really want win together.
There's no mistaking the urgency of the message, as the coming months may be the most arduous in the war. Both Ukraine and Russia are preparing new offensives in the depths of winter, with the end to the brutality nowhere in sight. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
A tragic story out of Montreal. A young Ukrainian girl was laid to rest there today. The 7-year-old was killed in a hit-and-run last week. She was a refugee who came to Canada just a few months ago. As Mike Armstrong reports, she was seeking safety from the war at home.
Most at this funeral didn't know Maria, but they wanted to be here because they knew her story.
My heart is broken, and I can imagine this tragedy for this family.
Maria Leginkovska had only been in Canada for 2 months. She came with her mother and 2 siblings. Her father stayed in Ukraine to fight. Well, he did make it to the funeral. The Canadian government expedited the visa process, allowing him to be with his family.
The Canadian authorities obviously understood that those are special circumstances that warranted an accelerated process, and he made it back on Sunday.
The accident happened here last Tuesday morning. Maria and her older brother and older sister were walking to school and crossing the street. The speed limit here is 30. It's a school zone, and it's one of those places you're supposed to be very careful. Maria was hit by a car with her brother and sister watching. She died of her injuries later that day.
There were other kids there witnessing the collision. It's really devastating.
Now, the driver of the vehicle didn't stop. He would only turn himself into police later in the day. The 45-year-old man was charged with hit and run. He appeared in court Friday and was released on bail. But at a memorial service Tuesday for Maria, her mother called for clemency. She says the accused has children of his own and that she doesn't want him to suffer more.
She knows that it wasn't intentional, and she wishes only the best for the man who did this.
The plan right now is for Maria's mother and siblings to stay in Canada for the next couple of months. The father will be around as well. He's going to stay to help the family settle and mourn. In 2 or 3 months, he'll go back to Ukraine and back to fighting in the war. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
The debate over ditching single-use plastics coming up as Canadians part ways with plastic. Are alternatives really that green? Plus, the accelerated plan towards fully electric cars in Canada. New rules are now in place to help reduce plastic waste in Canada. The first phase of a national ban on single-use plastics is now in effect. That means many disposables like straws, cutlery, or grocery bags will soon become things of the past. Touria Izri looks at the pluses of the transition as well as its downsides.
That crinkling sound at the checkout is gone, replaced by the quieter cotton alternative. Plastic bags are now relics in grocery stores, with customers reaching for reusable instead.
Everybody's just going to get used to it. So, yeah, I think it's the right way to go. And
Canadians use a staggering 15 billion plastic bags every year. They can take 1,000 years to disintegrate. That's why provinces and cities have already brought in their own plastic bag bans, all in an effort to stop littering landscapes and clogging waterways.
If we went to Lake Ontario right now, at Toronto Harbour, we would find something like 20 million little pieces of plastic in a square kilometre.
Canada is the latest country to introduce a ban on single-use plastic. The UK, Australia, and India have all introduced similar measures. But there are questions about whether the alternatives are as green as we think.
There are some customers, like seniors or students, that forget their bags, either in their dorm or seniors forget them at home.
Every time customers forget, the reusable bags pile up.
Sitting around, I would say about 10, and we've had to clear out.
York University professor Calvin Lacken researches waste management and says the ban will have unintended consequences.
It's a lot of feel-good and not do-good policy.
A United Nations study found the alternatives take more energy and carbon to make. Cotton bags need to be used up to 150 times before they're considered more environmentally friendly. For reusable plastic bags, that number is 20. Paper bags cut down on litter, but in most cases have a larger impact on the climate.
Paper decomposes and releases all of that methane and/or embodied carbon.
And shoppers may wind up buying more plastic products to line their garbage cans or pick up after pets.
Some single-use plastics are absolutely bad, and some are actually really great. But in order to figure that out, we need to actually do the work. We can't just assume one way or the other.
Questions about whether banning single-use plastic is a double-edged sword. Touria Izri, Global News, Ottawa.
Electric vehicle ambitions, the federal government's new targets for EV sales. The Canadian government is accelerating its targets for electric vehicles. By 2026, 1/5 of all passenger cars, SUVs, and trucks sold in Canada will need to run on electricity. And by 2035, every passenger vehicle sold in Canada will need to be electric. As Ross Lord reports, there's a long road ahead to meet those requirements.
At less than 6% of the light-duty market in 2021, electric vehicles are a small but growing piece of Canada's auto industry.
In the last 2 years, that number has more than doubled. We're happening fastest in Quebec and British Columbia, two provinces that have regulated sales targets.
The federal government is announcing its first major set of regulations from a plan it published in April. The new regulations mean by 2026, 20% of all vehicles sold in Canada will be required to run on electricity. 4 years later, that target moves up to 60%. And by 2035, electric vehicle sales will be required to account for every passenger vehicle sold in Canada. The government and electric vehicle promoters suggest that mandating EV sales will force car dealers to make sure there are plenty in stock.
We have to make sure that Canadians have much easier access to EVs without having to wait anywhere between 3 months to 3 years.
Environmental groups say the regulations will help move Canadians away from gas engines, as will incentives of up to $5,000 in rebates for electric vehicle buyers. Another tipping point, oil and gas companies, facing an existential threat, are investing billions in EV charging stations. But others note there are downsides. An increase in mining to extract lithium and cobalt for EV batteries has caused other problems for the environment, like claims of contaminated drinking water. Controversies that are spreading to Canada, as a Quebec company plans to expand lithium mining to fill the growing demand. The government is sidestepping that part of the equation.
The focus is always on making sure that we're helping Canadians get access to these vehicles, we're making sure that the vehicles are affordable, and we are making sure that we have clean air and are tackling climate change.
She says the government encourages provinces that don't provide incentives, like Ontario, to take a closer look at what's happening with electric vehicle sales and reconsider. Ross Lord, Global News.
After 4 years on the surface of the red planet, NASA's Mars InSight lander has finally fallen silent. The rover's power levels have been dwindling for months because of the Martian dust coating its solar panels, and now it's no longer responding to communications from Earth. The probe landed in 2018, recording more than 1,300 so-called Mars quakes and sending back high-definition pictures and video complete with sound. NASA says the InSight team will keep trying to contact InSight just in case. The gift of a lifetime next, the record-breaking donation from a businesswoman to a Winnipeg charity. We all know about the wealthy donors who give money to hospitals or art galleries because their name often ends up on the building. There is a certain prestige to that, but there are also wealthy donors who seek no recognition. It's called quiet philanthropy. This year, one Winnipeg businesswoman gave the largest gift ever made to a Canadian charity by an individual, and you've probably never heard her name. As Melissa Ridgen explains, that's exactly how she wanted it.
It is with immense gratitude.
Raising funds for the community since 1921, the Winnipeg Foundation is used to people opening their wallets.
What we gifted to community last year, almost $85 million, was distributed to over 1,100 charities in the city.
But last month, one call from the estate of a local businesswoman would see that figure jump by an estimated $25 million a year for decades. Miriam Bergen left her family's company to the foundation, a record-setting $500 million gift.
You just have to be in pause of a bit of an awe about the love for this city, the love for humanity. I am just incredibly filled with absolute joy and love over her gift of Appleton shares to be held in trust by the Winnipeg Foundation to support community of this city for generations to come.
Appleton Holdings operates as Edison Properties with a large portfolio of residential and commercial rental properties around Winnipeg. Bergen willed the gift at the time of her passing earlier this year.
Miriam was intensely private. It's quite possible that she would have chosen to skip this type of an event. She was an unassuming person and did not like the spotlight.
The daughter of immigrants, her father Martin Bergen built the Edison property empire, and with his wife Ruth quietly supported community organizations throughout his life, a legacy carried on by his daughter.
Martin and Ruth Bergen felt that coming to Canada was life-changing for themselves and their families. They never lost sight of how lucky they were to live here and were proud to be Canadians.
And as many close out 2022 under more economic pressure, Bridges hopes this act inspires everybody to do what they can.
I hope that this message of generosity reminds everyone that you can open up your heart at any time and make a difference. It doesn't matter about the size, it's about the act. And if, as a community, if we do that in love, we will move better together for future generations forever.
Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is the Christmas market at Lansdowne Park in Ottawa, Ontario. We'd love to see your festive photos. Please email them to viewers@globalnational.com. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.